Welcome back to the history of everything, I guess. Last time we went through the most important aspects leading to the fall of Constantinople, but now in our third and final installment, we will be discussing the order of battle and the effects of the fall of Constantinople on the world. So sit back, relax, and let's dive in. Starting with the Ottoman forces commanded by their general Sultan Mehmed II, they numbered an estimated 80,000 to 100,000 troops, including allies and auxiliary forces. The key components of the army were obviously the infantry, which was made up of the Janissaries, the elite troops of the empire, disciplined and loyal to the Sultan, armed with muskets, bows, and melee weapons that played a crucial role in storming the city, and also the regular infantry, which, much like their European counterparts, they used pikes, swords, and bows, but they were also comprised of various ethnic groups, including Turks, Arabs, and Balkan Christians. Now here comes the fun part, the artillery. They used the great bombards, such as the Basilica, which was the cannon that was made by Orban, which he initially planned to sell to the Byzantines, but because unfortunately the Eastern Roman Empire ran out of money, he went to the rivals and sold it to them. And also there were artillery units that also included smaller cannons and mortars for support, and also siege engineers. The role of the engineering corps, especially in the Middle Ages, is sometimes overlooked, which I really don't get, because they were really specialized in building and operating siege equipment, including trebuchets and bridges for the foot soldiers. Obviously, it wouldn't be a medieval battle without the use of cavalry, which included the Sipahi, which was heavy cavalry known for their mobility and shock tactics, used for flanking and disrupting enemy formations, much like European knights, and the light cavalry, used mostly for reconnaissance, raiding, supply lines, and skirmishing. There were also the supporting units, such as the Serbian contingent led by Juraj Brankovic, who was a prince of Serbia who allied with Mehmed in hopes of gaining favor and territorial security. Spoiler alert, it didn't. But this is what we call karma. Anyway, moving to the Byzantine forces, the commanding general was obviously Emperor Constantine XI Palaiologos, with an estimated strength of approximately 7,000 to 10,000 troops, including local militias and foreign volunteers. The key components were once again the infantry, led by the soldiers of Constantine Palaiologos, which included local citizens and remnants of the Byzantine army, armed primarily with swords, spears, and shields, again, much like every single medieval army. And the famed Varangian Guard, elite mercenary units primarily composed of Norse and Anglo-Saxon warriors, known for their fierce fighting style and loyalty. For reference, they were basically Vikings with Roman-style military training. They were a force of nature. And obviously artillery with the famed Greek fire, which is basically medieval napalm, with a secret weapon used to defend the city effectively against ships and enemy troops, and unfortunately smaller cannons because, spoiler alert, Urban was greedy for money. And obviously the Navy. The Byzantine fleet, even though it was small in numbers, it attempted to break the Ottoman blockade, and it also had limited success due to naval superiority, but like I said in the previous video, the Byzantine Navy only had 26 ships, which, given the numbers, they did pretty well, I think. Now, I did mention the Ottoman blockade. The Ottomans did control all of the Bosphorus and the Dardanelles, and they did cut off supplies and reinforcements to Constantinople. They also managed to run circles, diplomatically speaking, around the Byzantines, with Mehmed managing to get alliance with local powers like Serbia. Again, it did bite them in the ass eventually, but it did strengthen his position. Another thing that really helped the Ottomans out was the extensive building of fortifications and siege works, including trenches and artillery platforms. Going on to the actual siege of the city by the Ottomans, it lasted from April 6 to May 29, 1453, and it was divided in three major phases. First, we had the initial bombardment, in which Ottoman artillery began to breach the Theodosian walls, causing significant damage. Next, the assaults on the wall, in which several attempts were made to storm the city, including night raids and divisionary tactics. Fun fact, during this time, actually Mehmed thought about quitting and regrouping for a little bit, in which the Byzantines might have had a better fighting chance. But then again, the final assault came on May 29th, in which a coordinated attack with multiple breaches in the walls finally succeeded. The Janissaries and the Serbian troops did manage to enter the famed walls of Constantinople, and the Byzantine defenses eventually collapsed, leading to the city's fall. I want to talk a little bit more on a personal note right now, and talk about how, even though I as a Greek, especially a Constantinopolitan Greek, because yes, I do have roots in my family going back to the city and to the Byzantine Empire, I am obliged to hate the Ottoman Empire for what they did to my people, but at the same time, I have to respect Mehmed II for his determination. One thing that a lot of people don't know is that he actually cut down forests in order to bypass the chain in the Bosporus. I talked about it in the previous video. Again, you should watch it. And in order to avoid the blockade from the Byzantine Empire on the southern side of the Bosporus, he cut down an entire forest, moved his entire navy from the land, and then managed to bombard the city from the sea. Not only that, the guy was 21 years old at the time, and he did manage to conquer Constantinople. I know guys in their mid-30s that can't order takeout on their phone because they have such severe social anxiety that they cannot talk to a complete stranger. Anyway, despite the desperate situation in which the Byzantine Empire was in, they did have a very comprehensive system for defending the city, with Emperor Constantine XI being the supreme commander. He was in direct command of the overall defense effort. Constantine was pivotal in rallying all of the defenders and inspiring their resistance against the Ottoman siege, and he made crucial decisions throughout the battle. Then there was Giovanni Giustiniani Longo, who was the commander of the land defenses. He was a Genoese commander and mercenary leader, and he was responsible for defense of the city walls. He commanded a significant contingent of troops, including skilled crossbowmen, with his experience and tactical acumen being vital in organizing the defenses against the Ottoman assaults. Then there was Mukazan Taras, who was a Grand Duke and naval commander. Once again, like I said, being Grand Duke was pretty much like being the Prime Minister of the country in today's terms, but the office also came with naval command of the empire. He oversaw the Byzantine fleet in the Golden Horn, and he attempted to prevent Ottoman ships from breaching the city's defenses by sea. On my previous video, I talked about how there was a major chain within the Sea of Constantinople. That was actually his idea, and he was also involved in coordinating all of the defense efforts between land and naval forces. Then there was Theodore Palaiologos, who was the brother of Constantine, and he was commander of defense of the walls. Theodore was responsible in overseeing the troops stationed alongside critical sections of the walls and ensuring they were prepared for the Ottoman assaults. Then there was Andreas Taras, who was defender of the city gates. He was a relative of Lukazan Taras, and he was tasked with defending one of the main city gates. He was responsible for organizing the defense at key entry points into the city, which were crucial during the final assault. Then again, the Varangian Guard, they were stationed at critical points along the walls and participated actively in defending against the assault. Lastly, we have Cardinal Isidore, who, even though he was not a combatant, he did play a major spiritual role. He did hold religious services and prayers, and he saw divine intervention whenever he could for the defenders of Constantinople. He aimed to bolster the morale of the citizens and the soldiers through his presence and leadership in religious observance. And he also advocated for unity among Eastern Orthodox Christians and Roman Catholics, and he did encourage the collaboration between different factions within the city to the best of his abilities once again, and he did seek aid from Western and Eastern powers wherever and whenever he could. But like I said in the previous video, the papacy was significantly weakened, and Western Europe was basically in shambles due to major wars going on. Unfortunately, though the Christian armies did fight valiantly, they were no match for the Ottoman forces. After Constantine XI saw that his city had fallen but he was still alive, he ripped out all of his imperial regalia and charged one last time, eventually leading to his death. It is widely known and accepted that Greek thinking and Greek artistry largely entered Western European society after the fall of Constantinople, especially through cities like Venice and Genoa, thus leading to the birth of new thinking, humanism, and arts that we still enjoy to this day. Thank you for watching. This was the history of everything, I guess, and see you on the next video.